It's the return of Boku Undo's Shadow Black watercolor set. Hi, I'm Irene. Welcome to Inkworks. Sure, I've used these paints before. It was actually featured in one of my most viewed videos ever. Is that a shameless prod to check out my massive and scintillating video library? Short answer, yes. Long answer, a link to that particular video is in the description. If you're a link schmink sort of person, then strike all of that and take a gander at these fresh swatches of reddish, yellowish, greenish, bluish, purplish, and brownish blacks. The intent here was to create a late autumn mood. Well, late autumn involves eating and drinking in a big way. You know, Thanksgiving and all. So that was the inspiration for the subjects here. A mushroom cookbook and an apple cider mug. It might be superfluous, but I wanted to share the concept sketches. Just because I always find it interesting to see the development of an idea. To be fair, this wasn't a complex project, but I still like to hold on to the rough drafts. But now might be a good time to mention that the paper for these paintings is Hanamula Collection 140 pound, 100% cotton, cold pressed. That's been my favorite watercolor paper for a while now. Sometimes I like to create the sketch with a colored pencil, but in this case, I wasn't confident about getting a clean enough drawing, so I used a graphite pencil, or more precisely, a mechanical lead holder, also known as a clutch pencil. That way, erasure could take place, if necessary. And boy, was it necessary. We're a couple of minutes in now, and I should probably inform newcomers that while I do talk about the process, I also talk about other stuff. So expect tangents and tenuous connections. For example, that mushroom cookbook. Well, I love me some shrooms. But since that term has connotations, I'd better stick to the less ambiguous full form, mushrooms. Oh yeah, from modest buttons to frilly chanterelles, raw or sautéed, as crudités or sandwich fillings, with spoon, fork, or fingers, I am down with the fungus. That sounds as if I have an unfortunate skin condition. Not true. It all cleared up months ago. So scratch that last bit, too. That's Inkworks for you, crossing boundaries and making viewers slightly uncomfortable. The first round of inking was done with a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen in sepia. Usually I prefer the brush tip, but since the plan was to apply another round of inking later, I went with the 0.7 fine liner there. Then the pencil marks were removed using a white plastic eraser. I do that with messy sketches, since graphite can muddy up the paint colors. Many years ago, I used to make Hungarian mushroom soup. I don't recall where the recipe came from, but it was very dill-centric. Gotta admit, it wasn't my favorite, but since family members enjoyed eating it, I kept making it. Well, I lost that recipe a long time ago, and with the existence of the internet, you'd think I'd have found another recipe to replace it. I mean, I could slide on over to Pinterest, type in mushroom soup, and get a gazillion results, right? Right. And that's the problem. How does one choose from so many? That, and I just don't cook as much as I used to. And producer Mike's not a big fan of soups anyway. At least not as a main attraction. And if I'm gonna make soup, that's the meal. No sides and Because these days, cooking one thing is enough to get me hot and sweaty. So there are reasons why homemade mushroom soup is not in our regular meal rotation. Condensed cream of mushroom soup in a can, however, we go through a lot of that. We add it to red sauce for spaghetti or combine with gravy mix to pour over meat. And, of course, it's essential for classic quick and easy casseroles, such as green bean or tuna. There's a shot of the brushes used on this piece, a couple of round Aqua Elites from Princeton, and a quill from Da Vinci. They all have synthetic filaments and are some of my favorite brushes. Yeah, they're delightful to work with. This particular brush is from Da Vinci's Spin series. Da Vinci is a German brand that offers a broad range of art brushes, both natural and synthetic. They are not associated with the American Da Vinci brand of artist paints, totally different entities. The black-handled brushes are from Princeton's Aqua Elite series. They are included in my most viewed video ever. I've got some things to say about Princeton watercolor brushes. No, that's the title. I'm not going to talk about it now, although it probably should be updated. If I recall, I had just gotten my first Aqua Elites, so didn't have a whole lot to say about them back then. A future project. The point is, a link is in the description. With the first layer of color, I wished I'd gone darker. I kept reminding myself to be careful because these are inky shades, and I ended up overcompensating. In other words, I overwatered the paint. With a lot of Western watercolors, you can often add 2 or 3 layers to create a nice effect. But I found that Japanese Gansai watercolors, like this Boku Undo Shadow Black set, don't layer as well. If your experience has been different, let us know in the comments. For now, I'll tell you this project did not go as planned. Oh, it started out predictably. The sketching and inking, for example. No surprises there. It was only while painting that I began second-guessing my choices. Now, I am fond of these paints. They are a little more opaque than Western watercolors. If you've ever used one of Kuratake's popular Gansai Tombi sets, you'll know what I mean. And these shadow black colors are combined with black sumi ink, giving them a deep, dark cast that really floats my boat. Unfortunately, after painting for a while, I realized the results didn't match the images in my head. So I took a break to mull over some options and decided to turn these into mixed media pieces. Earlier this month, I'd shared a backyard pic showing that it hadn't yet reached peak autumn here. That was through the community tab. Well, that very evening, there was a windstorm. The result? A nice spattering of fall foliage across the entire yard. And last week, I watched as leaf after leaf floated down to join the blanket of gold, orange, red, and brown covering the lawn. Exactly the sort of late November vibe I was hoping for. So, of course, my thoughts have been fixed on Thanksgiving and its associated foods. We've prepared whole turkeys many times, every which way. Roasted, deep-fried, buttered, basted, herbed, seasoned, injected, plumped, spatchcocked, small, large, and wrapped in bacon. But it turns out we're just not big turkey people. So these days, producer Mike and I usually go unconventional for Thanksgiving. And this year, It's gonna be lasagna with a generous amount of mushrooms. We both love lasagna, and since it's been a long time since our last one, it should make for a special holiday meal. The thought of all that melted cheese alone, it's got me salivating into my cider mug. Mmm. Hot apple cider. If the option is available, I'll choose sugar-free. Most times it's not an option. That's when I just go with the flow. The thing is, I know Alpine makes a sugar-free version of their hot apple cider mix. So why is it so darned difficult to find in supermarkets? My most memorable hot cider experience was like 15 years ago. I don't recall if it was fall or winter, but I do know it was a cold and rainy day. We'd popped into an antique mall / consignment shop, all shivery and dripping wet, and right there at the front counter was an urn dispensing hot apple cider. Wait, is this for anyone? How much are they charging? Nothing? That can't be right. Seriously, is this free? So we helped ourselves, and for the next hour, we roamed the entire store while sipping yummy, steaming elixir. Gratis. It was a delightfully sedate hour, yes, but that cider was special because it was the first time I'd had hot apple cider with caramel in it. Oh, I'd had caramel apples before, just not the liquid equivalent. So that was an eye-opener and definitely memorable. You'll notice I used a 2-color palette. Yeah, the pieces were mainly limited to reddish black and greenish black, but I did dip into brownish black for several spots: the mushroom stem, the book pages, and the cinnamon stick. This is where the colored pencils came in. There are a couple of polychromos pencils from Faber-Castell. I have the 12-color set. Very basic, yes, but I'm happy to have it as it's come in handy many times. Usually, I limit colored pencils to finishing touches and details, but in using them more heavily here, I figured I could use a powdered blender medium to soften the appearance if needed. Too bad I couldn't remember where I'd put the stuff. Mineral spirits or linseed oil, which are also used as blending mediums, aren't kept in the studio, so those weren't options either. Those are examples of how art plans change. Sure, they might sound like excuses, but since I'm actually quite pleased with how these pieces turned out in the end, that's not the case. Not entirely, anyway. You might be thinking, but Irene, that's not a mug, that's a tankard. And I agree, now. But during the entire editing process, it was, in my mind at least, a mug. And it would be a real pain in the butt to go back and change all of the file names. So, mug it is. After the pencils, there was more inking, and the final touches were white gouache highlights and some background leaves. While we're anticipating Thanksgiving, there's still leftover Halloween candy to get through, and it's all Skittles. That's right, the mini Twix and Snickers are long gone. You know how Skittles are. You pop like 6 at a time in your mouth. Don't deny it. Sure, they're tasty, but after a bit of mastication, they become a gritty mound of sugary mush, which is the opposite of a pleasant mouthfeel. I'd planned to use the brush-tipped pen from the same Faber-Castell set the other fine liner was from, but decided to use this instead. It's a brush-tipped fountain pen. I think it was like $15 for a set of 3. It has a built-in piston filling mechanism, so you can use your favorite bottled ink. In this case, it was filled with Rohrer and Klingner's sketch ink in the shade Lily. That ink is highly water resistant. I'd even go so far as to call R&K's sketch inks waterproof. It wasn't necessary in this case, since I didn't add any watercolors on top. I simply reached for it because it's my go-to ink for arting. There are others in the series, so if Lily doesn't thrill you, perhaps one of the other 10 shades will. Personally, I've got my eye on Emma, Frida, and Jewel. And I'm not talking about the occasional nudity on the label art. It took me months of use and several videos where I flashed close-ups of that bottle of Lily all willy-nilly before I even noticed. Hey, it was stylized. Stylized. This time of year, I like to check out what's new in Limax and Apartment 56 collectible miniatures. I don't collect them. Are you kidding? These days, they're like $150 per building. But producer Mike has a Limax Spooky Village scene that took many years to create. So, although we no longer add pieces, it's a delightful diorama we display all year long. For many years, I worked at a boutique gift shop, and the most exciting moments were when the owner set up the Department 56 Village pieces. She put a lot of work into arranging the various scenes, and the store had several bay windows that perfectly showed them off. They were all so magical, but my personal favorites were the Halloweeny ones. That experience sparked my obsession with Halloween. Before that, I could take it or leave it. After, I couldn't get enough. Of course, the Halloween Village series had a lot of fun pieces, yes, but the one I fell in love with was actually from the Dickens Village All Hallows Eve sub-series. It's called Barleycorn Manor. Yeah, I bought that one and only piece because it ticked all my boxes. Victorian architecture, autumnal ambiance, and lots of beautiful windows for the light to show through. It sits happily amongst the Limax Spooky Village buildings, figurines, headstones, and pumpkins. My dream home would have a built-in village display with an accessible behind-the-scenes area in the back, where we could rearrange the setups and even rotate them from Halloween to Christmas. Literally, the pull of a lever would turn the dais, thus switching the seasons. It's a bit of mad science that might work or might result in a Kronk situation. Oh yeah, I've got ideas. I may have to shuffle through a whole lot of chaff, but they're there all right, buried deep. It took longer than expected for me to finish this video, and it may go live either on or after Thanksgiving. But I would love to hear from you all about what you're doing, whether it's cooking up a storm, catching a football game, or loudly protesting, "Bah, I'm turkey." Oh, I forgot to mention, we're trying a new recipe for dessert. Italian lemon ricotta cake. Thought it would be a nice follow-up to the lasagna and green salad. Oh man, the thought of all that shroomage is making me drool buckets here. Tea day can't come soon enough. There may be just enough time for me to indulge in a bit of Thanksgiving's past reminiscence, because there are a couple that really stand out. One was when my brother and I said, screw the turkey, and put together a feast of fusion consisting of crispy egg rolls with tangy plum sauce, seasoned shrimp skewers, maki sushi, and a fresh whole pineapple. Seriously, one of the best holiday meals I've ever had. Another year, nobody was really feeling it, so to speak, so my brother treated a dozen family members to a sit-down dinner out. It was great. No, I don't remember the food at all, but the lack of stress, sweat, and tears during the preparation and cleanup stages, that pushes it to my top 3 Thanksgivings, easy. Painting those background leaves was so much fun. I can't adequately express how much fun without sounding like a loon, but it's definitely an exercise I recommend. You know, for those times when you aren't feeling particularly creative and just want a bit of brush and paint therapy. Honestly, don't know why I don't do it more often. Okay, I do know one reason. Half the time, my workstations are cluttered as Maybe that was a little too honest. But some of you can relate, right? Actually, I'm surprised the studio stayed clean for as long as it did. After the big reorganizing, I mean. Yes, it's another promo for an old video. YouTube is great and all, but we creators gotta toot our own horns, loudly and frequently. You know the drill. A link is down below. Clickety click click. Also hit those like and subscribe buttons, thank you. Who doesn't love a dirty palette shot? I'm happy to share this mixed media art session. In the spirit of the season, I will also share that I'm thankful for the National Park Service, who recently warned us your chances of being hunted by a turkey are low, but never zero. Because it hadn't occurred to me to even consider that possibility. Until next time, remember to have a plan, but also to roll with the changes. That's how good things are discovered, like liquid caramel apples. Have a happy holiday and stay artsy, my friends. Do turkeys ever attack people? People also ask, how strong are turkeys? How fast can turkeys run? Can turkeys defend themselves? Can turkeys smell fear? What to do if a turkey sees you?